Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, everyone. On behalf of Shine.com and The Hindu, I welcome you to the Chennai edition of The Hindu Shine HR Conclave. It is my privilege to welcome you, and I acknowledge you all for taking out the time to be a part of the evening. The topic for today's discussion is bridging the skill gap. India, with one of the youngest populations in the world, is at strategic advantage with reference to demographic dividend. However, almost 3/4 of India's population is unskilled, and the skill gap is across all the levels, ranging from fresh graduates to corporate leaders. With the ever-evolving challenges and uncertain business environment, not only do we require to reskill ourselves to sustain our performance, but also build new skills for personal growth in both functional and linear domains. Companies want their experienced employees to strengthen their competence effectively across key functional disciplines and prepare for leadership roles for future succession. Also, among the newly minted graduates, the top corporate recruiters seek some highly sought-after skills required as per industry standards. The shortage of appropriately skilled workforce across many industries is emerging as a significant and complex challenge to India's growth and future. As businesses propose to double and treble their workforces, and India Incorporated strives to maintain its position in the global marketplace, the 37th The Hindu Shine HR Conclave will examine the opportunities in bridging the skill gap, as it has become imperative to prepare and plan for a world-class, competent, talented, and innovative workforce. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's begin with the conclave. I would like to introduce Rajendra Dantpani, Director of Engineering, Zoho Corporation. After graduating out of IIT Madras as an engineer in electronics and electrical communication, Rajendra dove headlong into the World Wide Web. He spent 7 years at Zoho, Asia's largest new age marketing entity, handpicking a technical team and managing projects and services for clients including Citibank and SIFI. After joining Zoho Corporation in 2004, he built and launched Jambav, a portal for dozens of tools and games for parents and children, with a special focus on children with special needs like dyslexia, Asperger's, and autism. Today, he is spearheading Zoho to the forefront of the mobile revolution. I now invite Rajendran to deliver the welcome address.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am so happy to welcome you all to this HR Conclave today. It is indeed an honor and great pleasure for us at Zoho to be part of this unique and long-running series. I represent Zoho Corporation, a 20-year-old company based in Chennai with branches around the world. We specialize in building software tools to boost your personal and team productivity. Tools that help you manage all your day-to-day activities, from sales and CRM to project management and customer support. And including, of course, our focus of the day, the HR suite and our recruitment suite. A crack team from Zoho has landed here and is waiting at the booth outside. Please find time to take a look at our unique take on using technology to answer the day-to-day challenges of recruitment and human resources. Meanwhile, I have two things to share with you before the real experts get on stage. The first is about HR in general. If I ask you all, how many of you took up HR as a career because you were truly amazed at the infinite capabilities of human potential? How many of you felt passionate about working with people, encouraging them, helping them overcome their limitations, helping them unleash their true potential? How many of you will raise your hands? Quite a few, I presume. But if I change that question, if I ask you all again, how many of you in your day-to-day routines at work really find the time to focus on working with people, encouraging them, overcoming limitations, helping unleash potential? How many of you will raise your hands then? You see, there is a reason behind this. I was reading an article the other day about why most cafe startups fail. You can Google it. It's a very popular link out there. The author says the biggest mistake people make about cafe startups is this. He warns, just because you love coffee, just because you enjoy drinking it, or even brewing it, don't think you'll be happy running a cafe startup. Coffee ends up being a very small fraction of a cafe startup. In fact, he points out a very unique comparison. He says, it turns out that running a cafe is as much about the coffee as raising a child is about cuddling. Yes, the coffee happens, and so does the cuddling. But guess what? What really makes up the typical day is very little sleep and lots of poop. When I read that article, I felt the same thing about what was happening here too. So many of us want to do great things as a HR professional, but end up having so little time to do it. Too much of our time ends up being spent in transactions, administration, operations, that we get very little time or no time at all to focus on the higher value generators of management and strategy. That's where I think Zoho as an empowering tool comes in. I would like to believe that Zoho, with its powerful tools for automating processes, customizing workflows, integrating deeply into other systems like project management, people recruitment, frees up valuable time for you all to focus on your true passion. Like I said earlier, please visit our stall. We have some good stuff waiting for you. The second thing I wanted to share with you all is particularly related to the topic of the day, bridging the skill gap. We hear stuff like 3/4 of India's population is unskilled. Only 14% of companies state that their leadership pipeline is ready. 47% of graduates in India are unemployable for any job. Economic Times said that. 90% graduates and 75% engineers are unemployable. NASSCOM said that. But I feel this gap is actually good. Like the famous Surf Excel ad, if you remember, about daag acha hai or dirt is good. I think it's actually a good thing that there is a gap between the expectations from the industry and the quality we get from educational institutions. Imagine the converse. Imagine college graduates were perfectly able to slip into roles in industry. If that were so, what would colleges then aspire for? Why would they bother about improving their systems and modernizing their syllabus and curriculum? So I think this gap is good. It throws an open challenge to educational institutions to improve their quality. Simultaneously, it gives us all in the industry a meaningful challenge too. How are we going to bridge the gap? At Zoho, we have learned it the hard way that real learning happens only on the job. In fact, that's the mission statement behind Zoho University, our decade-long effort to provide a meaningful alternative to conventional college education. So 10 years ago, we went to a school, we recruited 6 students who were good in academics, but weren't ready to finance their way through college. We gave them an aptitude test in mathematics and English and Tamil. And we set up 2 teachers for 6 students, gave them just 3 subjects, mathematics, English, and computer programming. 10 years later, I am very proud to say that 1/10 of our workforce, as many as 350 students, are actually students out of Zoho University. They haven't seen the inside of a college campus. What started as a small experiment 10 years ago is now a dependable and continuously growing source of people for us. So I'm going to be listening very eagerly to the experts speak about their points of view on bridging the skill gap. I'm sure we all have a lot of good things to learn from them. So over to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajendran. Ladies and gentlemen, we have the privilege of having amongst us some very prominent individuals from the HR fraternity who are here to share their views and insights on the topic, bridging the skill gap. We move on to our panel discussion now. Our first panelist for the conclave is David Raj, EVP and Chief Human Resource Officer, CSS Corp. David Raj heads the HR function at CSS Corp globally. He provides thought leadership in building innovation, human capital strategies globally, and focus on building cutting-edge, high-productivity HR processes. David has over 23 years of diverse experience in manufacturing and IT industries, where he has worked with companies like Murugappa Group, Rane, Virtusa, and Polaris. His experience spans across startups, change management, acquisition, and merger initiatives, IPO process, setting up near-shore centers, as well as managing talent across Europe, US, and Asia. David holds a bachelor's degree in business administration and a master's in social work from Loyola College, Chennai. Welcome, sir. Please join us on stage. Our next speaker for the conclave is Jayanti Vaidyanathan, Director Human Resources, PayPal India. Jayanti leads the Human Resources organization with the responsibility for driving strategies that support the company's growth and talent management and enhancing the employment and business value proposition. Under her leadership, PayPal India was named as one of the best places to work for the last 4 consecutive years by the Great Places to Work Institute. During her 19 years of diverse experience in human resources, Jayanti led both journalist and specialist human resources functions in the high technology and consulting fields in companies such as Covensis and eFunds International. Jayanti holds a graduate degree in law and postgraduate degree in personal management and also pursued an executive management program from IIM Kozhikode. Welcome, ma'am. It's an honor to have you here. Moving on to our next panelist, Prem K. Thomas, Senior Vice President and Chief Human Resource Manager, Blue Dart Aviation. Prem has been with Blue Dart Aviation from 1996. Beside all HR areas, he is involved in CSR and corporate communications as well. Prior to this, he has worked with Rane Madras, Murugappa Group, EIT Perry, and Best in Crompton. He is a visiting faculty in Liba Madras School of Social Work, DG Vaishnav College, Bharati Dasan University, Trichy, and has presented papers at forums in India and abroad. He has graduated as MSW Personnel from Madras School of Social Work, completed his PGDPM from New Zealand, training of trainers from ILO Turin, Italy. Please join us on stage, sir. We take honor to host you today evening. Our next panelist is Rakesh Gupta, Chief Human Resource Officer, Royal Sundaram Insurance. Rakesh has been awarded HR Leadership Award by APAC HRM Congress. He has rich MNC experience in metrics setups in Daimler, Philips, BOC, Tata, Ashok Leyland, etc. His experience summary comprises of human resource strategy and execution, going concerns in startups, creating benchmark practices. He is a graduate from IIT and postgraduate from NITI. Welcome, sir. Please join us on stage. Our next panelist is Vijay Iyer, Chief Business Officer, HCL Talent Care. Vijay has been with HCL since June 2014 as Chief Business Officer. He has over a decade's experience in the learning and skill development space. Prior to HCL, Vijay was with Deloitte as Chief Learning Officer, where he led talent development for the US firm's India offices. Vijay began his career at Procter & Gamble as District Manager. Later, he founded a learning advisory firm called Mentor Learning, where he built the pan-India operations of the firm, focusing on providing development strategy, design and delivery, coaching and leadership development, assessment and metrics, and managed learning services to clients and businesses. Vijay is an industrial engineer from the National Institute of Technology, Jamshedpur, and has a diploma in business management from XLRI, Jamshedpur. Welcome, sir. It's a pleasure to host you today. Our moderator for the panel discussion is C. Ramkumar, Head HR, TCS. Ram has over 15 years of professional HR experience spanning multiple geographies and multiple roles. Currently, he is heading HR for Chennai region, which encompasses 60,000 associates and 10 delivery centers. Prior to this, he has performed various leadership roles in the field of human resources, including HR deployment, heading HR for retail business unit, leadership development, HR strategy, resource management, planning and fulfillment, and vendor management at TCS in India and North America regions. He is an alumnus of IIT Madras and XLRE Jamshedpur. Thank you for being here, sir. Please join us on stage. Ladies and gentlemen, we will have a question and answer session post the conclave. During the discussion, please keep your phones on silent mode. Mr. Ramkumar, over to you, please.
Thank you, Evan. Thank you, Evan, for the introduction. So, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. So, this is bridging the skill gap. Right, not a new topic. At least I remember attending a seminar or panel discussion on the same topic when I was a student. And here we are. Am I audible now?
Do you want to use that?
Audible now? Okay. Good evening, everybody. So this topic of skill gap, right, and bridging the skill gap. At least many of us remember attending a panel discussion or talk session when we were students. And here we are with addressing the same topic on skill gap, and with all our experience, right, the skill gap or the problem of skill gap hasn't gone away. But particularly ever since Industrial Revolution, if you put it across that way, if you look at any society, any economy, any country, I don't think there has ever been a point in time where any country would have said that there is absolutely no skill gap, we are growing as a civilization, as an economy, and there are abundant skills, we are able to meet the skills. So having said that, in the last 15 or 20 years, how has this skill gap grown? Has it become worse? Has it become wider? Or the perspectives of the whole phenomenon of skill gap, has it changed? Or is it all such a bad story? Okay? And we have heard like a lot of statistics, like how 50% of rural India kids cannot do basic math, how more than 1/4 of the engineers, or probably 5 lakh engineers who are graduating, who are unemployable. There are a lot of statistics that we have heard. And the story is again not all that bad. We have also heard stories of phenomenal young, brash, and confident youngsters ready to take on the world, whose learnability is at an all-time high. If you look at all the startup world and from each of our own industries, if you look at youngsters, extremely well-skilled, extremely well-adaptable, and really making waves. So we will discuss the topic over a period of next one hour. And one thing I can tell you, we will not have any question answer session at the end. We will pause in between after each thread of discussion. We want to make this very interactive as possible. You can share your perspectives, views, and ask your questions to this panelist. Together, this panel, really privileged to be part of this panel, which has about close to 150 years of HR experience among them, from completely different industries, manufacturing, services, technology, and someone who looks at skill gap and bridging the skill gap for a living. So you will have multiple perspectives. And we will look at different perspectives from different industries, and we all hire at different levels, right? From arts graduates to ITIs to high school to technology to engineers. So I think there will be different perspectives on that skill gap, how it has evolved, changed, what is the extent of the skill gap, what are the solutions, and what each companies are doing to achieve that, and what the external environment can do to bridge that skill gap. All that we will discuss over a period of next 1 hour, and with active participation from you. So without much ado, I will start off with the first question, right? The skill gap. So how do we see it right now, and how has it evolved, or what is the extent of the problem? How do we see it from the point of view of the respective industries that we are in, right? And to start off, first I will start with Vijay, who looks at, like I said, skill gap and skill development for a living. with, with different clients. So let me start, Vijay, with what is your view of the skill gap and how it exists with various industries, and what is your perspective on this?
Can you hear me, or do I also need to use the other mic? It's better I use this mic? Okay. Can I get this one? Okay. Can you hear me? Excellent. Thanks, Ram. I think you touched upon this, right? Has it gotten worse over the last 20 years? And I just want to spend a little time on that, right? I think two things have happened in the last 20 years. One is that the pace of change in industry and technology has increased rapidly. It's been exponential, right? So as a result of that, a few things have happened. I think university curriculums have not been able to change at the pace at which technology has changed or the world has changed. So there is a natural increase in the gap because of that. The other, because of the pace of change, I also think other things are happening. Life cycles of companies are becoming smaller and smaller, right? There was a time when companies lasted longer than the lifespan of people. I don't think most people started their career in the same company and ended a career in the same company. I don't think there is a single person in this room probably who is still with the same company that they started their careers with, right? And because companies their life cycles are becoming shorter, their need to buy rather than make has become higher, right? Earlier, let's say when I started my career with Procter, the first year was training. You were not expected to really perform. You were expected to go into the field, learn the trade, right? Many of us, if you started in manufacturing, the first couple of years were apprenticing and so on. That's gone away. Companies because the market has changed, companies are saying, I'd rather get ready talent than make. Because if I make for 1 year, technology changes, whatever I have made is obsolete in any case. So I think the gap has certainly increased in its quantum, right? Perhaps the gap was still 80% 30 years ago or 20 years ago, but just the sheer number of people, the sheer number of companies, the sheer change in technology has led to a perception. And I think there's also more data available now, right? So I'll pause there and...
Sure. Thanks, Vijay. So technology has changed and the gap is definitely increased in quantum. So with that, we'll just get a specific different industry point of view on that skill gap. I'll move on to the first technology industry from Jayanti. What is your view from your part of the world?
Am I audible? Oh, okay. So I think I completely agree with what you kind of, set the stage with and what Vijay articulated. But from a macroeconomic context, I think the context at which we are seeing the skill gap is slightly different today. I mean, look at it from the perspective of where our economy is headed. I think it's a great opportunity. In 2020, we are touted to be the, economy which drives 1.3 billion people is the estimate. And the estimate also is that about 60% of the population, which is about 0.8 billion, is in the employable category, right? In the age group of 16 to 55 years or so. So I look at the skill gap overall, not just with specific reference to my industry, but overall from that context. I think it's a huge opportunity. It's a huge opportunity to paint the global, town red, with what we have to offer as an economy. And the government is, clearly embarked on a lot of initiatives to make it happen, whether you take Make in India, the Mudra, the skill building, the 10 years investment in the ministry, and all the programs that you're hearing is super exciting. And I completely agree with what Vijay said. I think the context has fundamentally changed. We are even more responsible today as a country to be a global player. 2,000 plus organizations I understand from India or in the global space have set up shops in various countries. So it also places a huge responsibility on us. Most of it is to do with technology. So how do we create global leaders, not just leaders that are able to understand the domestic paradigm, but are cross-cultural, bring the relevant kind of global skills to the table, are able to lead teams, are able to empower teams in this global kind of environment is the challenge for us, right? I'll probably pause there and then take it from there.
To start off on a slightly positive note, so you view it as there is a huge opportunity, right? So I will move on over to Prem. From the industry, I think you hire much different kinds of people at the entry level. So how do you view that problem, and right, has it really become more accentuated in the recent years?
Yeah, Ram. 35 years ago, when I joined the manufacturing industry, we used to get diploma mechanical engineers into the industry. And every one of my managers used to say, these guys don't know anything. I think we'll have to set up a training institute for them. So we set up a training institute. Today in the aviation industry, when I recruit people from the aviation colleges, the managers say the same thing. But we've got so much mandated training that they can't get away with not learning on the job. So in the context of the aviation industry, it's a totally different thing, because aviation is so safety-based that there's a lot of mandated training. And luckily for us, that has helped us. But it hasn't helped us on the operations side, where we take +2 guys. It hasn't helped us in the other areas where we take some B.Techs, but they come in with absolutely no, and the difference is that we stopped taking BA graduates or BA, BCom graduates, because we felt that a +2 and a BA graduate didn't have much of a, there was no difference there. And we might as well take a +2 and train him. And maybe if we find him smart enough, send him through formal education at our cost. So that's the way we sort of tackle the situation.
But do you think it has become worse in the last few years, or?
It has to some extent, because of the churn and the sort of the colleges, I think, just want to bring out more people. The quality is, and we've talked with colleges. We said, let's look at exchanging the students, getting them into apprenticeship type of jobs. And then we found that the faculty was lacking in, the faculty didn't have a clue of what's happening in industry. I mean, we're talking about Boeing 757s. They grew up with Avros. So, there's a huge gap.
So skill gap is widened. There is a lot of opportunity, but also the normal thing which we all face, right? We are also worried about the quality. So there is a huge opportunity presented by the demographics, and there is this problem of, how much of the quality output that we are getting. We'll quickly get into what, each of us in the industry are doing about it. But before that, we will quickly hear perspectives from CSS Corp as well as from the insurance point of view on how do you view it, both of you. First over to Rakesh and then to David.
Yeah, we were just having a short discussion before we came in here. As far as skill gap is concerned, it is not a new phenomenon. It is always a positive aspect of an economy which is on the growth curve. A lot of changes are happening, and all the time you are actually on your toes looking for reskilling and also looking for new skills, because new industries are coming up, right? Now, but what has happened in the last several years, as far as I have noticed, is that we have actually made parametric changes, trying to bring in trainings, trying to bring in institutions which gives skills training. But then, in my opinion, the problem today lies, since we are growing pretty fast, and as they say by 2025, India would be actually having a workforce of about 25% of the entire globe. In that situation, what is required today is not only confining to the parametric changes, but getting into the structural change. When I say structural change, I'll give you an example, right? I had been hiring people from campuses, right? And insurance business, as you're aware, recently, the the government has allowed more investment by the foreign partners in the insurance business and is picking up. Even though it was privatized several years back, the real essence, the real opportunities are coming in the recent years because it took some time to, as part of the gestation period, to pick up. So what has primarily happened is that most of these new private insurers, they have picked up people from the PSUs because PSUs have a very good structured training program, and that is a generation which has primarily leading in many of the companies, the insurance industry. Why I tell you this as a backdrop is that when I go to the campuses to hire people for insurance, I find even the insurance industry as part of the BFSI is coming up pretty fast. The students in the B schools are not aware of this opportunity, right? The courses, the curriculum have not been adapted to include insurance as one more elective for people to develop. Now, what this tells in the larger context of the entire educational system is that there's a huge, huge gap all the while in not being able to connect what is happening in the industry, the real ground level reality, and the course curriculum that are being designed back in the institutes. So that is something that is required as a structural change. That is number one, and I'm talking about the colleges. But going further down, I was interviewing a couple of guys, and one guy had a terrific, qualifications from pretty good schools, undergrad, postgrad, what have you. And then here was a guy who was actually doing his examinations in one of these insurance institutes, just like you have these ICWA, ICA, you keep doing writing examinations to become, qualified insurer. So he was doing this, plus he had actually sold insurance, right? So I found this guy who had practical experience, but no great qualifications to write home about, a more practical and a more acceptable candidate who would be starting on the job from day one rather than I have to train him for at least a year all about insurance. Now why I'm telling this is, going back to the structural change that is required in the educational system is, it throws up a question as to why don't we have a compulsory interning requirement before you are allowed to get into university education, right? That's a question. That's a structural change. Similarly, a few questions that come up. Why do we need all graduates? We have a problem where we have a lot of people whom we hire. Some people call them feet on street, some people call them temps, some people call them sales people, what have you. But these people actually don't stay with you because they come pick up a job at a very low price and then strive to pick up their graduation and post-graduation and move on. But if you have people coming from high schools to pick up these jobs, get interned as part of the practical experience that they get selling, but at the same time they pick up degrees. So it actually adds a lot of value to the entire chain of the skills, the value chain of the skill. So I'm just throwing up a few examples from my experience that I find are problems and some of the solutions that could mitigate this problem. But primarily I believe that we need a structural change in the entire education system to mitigate the skills gap. And it's going to be an ever-changing phenomenon. And lastly, the drivers have to be kept in mind while you're doing the structural change. I believe the drivers are today the demand on quality. Because when you're talking about Make in India, when you're talking about globalization, demand on quality, whether we are seeing whether we are ready to meet those quality demands, that is one. The tremendous growth that my colleague Vijay said that is happening, which is bringing in a lot of value propositions for the new generation, in terms of varied technologies, in terms of wider choices, in terms of flexibility, in terms of need to reskill every time you want to be flexible. So it is quite a dynamic environment. It's a pretty challenging environment where we just can't stay on with a few parametric changes, that we have been doing over the last 10 years. So, and finally, as you said, that I had actually spoken in one of the similar topics almost 10 years back, and the topic is still alive. And that itself reflects that it really needs something different.